So I want you to consider a pretty wild idea from the economist Yanis Varoufakis. He argues that capitalism, well, it's already dead. The big question is, what killed it? And, what's replaced it? That's what we're going to unpack today.
Okay, so to get our heads around this, let's start with a real head-scratcher. Picture this. It's August 2020, and the UK announces its worst recession in history. I mean, terrible news, right? So what does the stock market do? It jumps up over 2%. Now, in a normal capitalist world, that makes absolutely no sense. But according to Varoufakis, that's the whole point. It's a huge clue that we're not in a capitalist world anymore.
So what does he say is the culprit? Well, he puts it in this really stark way. The thing that killed capitalism is capital itself. Now, hold on. He's not talking about the old school capital, factories and machines. He's talking about a totally new kind of mutated version of capital, one that's become so powerful, it's almost like a parasite that's ended up killing its host.
So, according to this idea, this new kind of capital didn't just shake things up a bit. It completely took over. It replaced the old system entirely. Which leads us to, the big crucial question. If it's not capitalism anymore, then what the heck is it?
Varoufakis has a name for it, and it's a mouthful. Technofeudalism. Yeah, just like the old-school feudalism with lords and peasants, he argues this new system has its own brand-new class structure. It basically rewrites the rules for who's on top, who's in the middle, and, well, who's at the bottom.
Under capitalism, the picture was pretty simple, right? You had the capitalists who own the stuff and the workers, the proletariat, who worked for them. Two main groups. But in this new techno-feudal model, it's not so simple. The whole thing has split into this new three-tiered hierarchy. You've got the new rulers, the new kind of producers, and then, well, you've got the rest of us. So right at the top of this new pyramid, they're called the cloudalists. Think of them as the new digital feudal lords. They're the ones who own the massive digital networks that basically run our lives now, that cloud capital. We're talking about Amazon's platform, Google's search engine, Meta's entire ecosystem. They own the digital land.
All right, so below the cloudalists, you've got a group called the vassal capitalists. A perfect example is a small business that sells its products on Amazon. See, they still own their own business, they're technically still capitalists, but they're completely dependent on the cloudalist territory to survive. They have to operate inside Amazon's digital fiefdom and pay a kind of cloud rent just for the privilege of being there.
And that brings us to the bottom tier, where most of us apparently live. We are the cloud serfs. Think about it. Every time you post something, write a review, click a like button, or just browse, you're doing unpaid work. You're creating the data that makes these digital kingdoms so incredibly valuable. Without our constant activity, the whole thing would be worthless. We're basically the new digital peasantry. Okay, so this begs the question, right? What is this cloud capital exactly? What makes it so different and so powerful? Let's dig into what's really at the heart of the cloudists' power. Varoufakis has this great way of explaining the shift. Think about Don Draper from Mad Men. He represents the old capitalist model of advertising. It was a one-way street, right? They beamed a message at you to try and make you want something. Now, compare that to Alexa or your Google Assistant. That's a two-way street. It listens to you, learns from you, and then actively guides your behavior. It's not about creating desire anymore. It's about commanding behavior. So this is a really key difference. A traditional factory, it makes stuff, cars, phones, whatever. But cloud capital, its main product is different. Varoufakis calls it a produced means of behavior modification. Its main output isn't a physical thing at all. It's us, or more specifically, a change in how we act, what we think, and what we buy. And we're all trapped in this endless feedback loop. It's happening constantly. You provide a little bit of data, a click here, a post there. The algorithm instantly learns from it and then tweaks your reality, showing you the next thing. That, in turn, modifies your behavior. Maybe you watch another video, and boom, you've just given it more data to learn from. We are literally training the algorithms that are in turn training us. Okay, so this all sounds pretty huge, but how did this new system take over so completely and so fast? Well, Varoufakis points to one single event as the main catalyst, the 2008 financial crisis. So here's what happened after the crash in 2008. On one hand, governments slapped austerity measures on the public, cutbacks, less spending. But on the other hand, the central banks started printing money like there was no tomorrow. Trillions of dollars just poured into the financial system. And all that cheap, nearly free money, it had to find a home. He has a pretty sharp name for this. Socialism for financiers and austerity for the rest. And it created this really bizarre economic situation. The financial system was absolutely swimming in cash. But because of austerity, regular people and traditional businesses didn't have much money to spend, so there was nowhere profitable for the financiers to invest all that cash, at least not in the real economy.
And this is the moment when, for a certain kind of company, making a profit suddenly became optional. With access to all this endless cheap money from investors, the cloudalists could afford to lose money for years. Their goal wasn't short-term profit, it was long-term total domination of their market. Think about how long Amazon operated without making any real profit. But this whole transformation isn't just about economics. It's much bigger than that. According to Varoufakis, it's completely reshaping global politics. In fact, it's pushing us into what he calls a new Cold War.
So the theory goes like this. The world is now splitting into two massive, competing digital empires, or supercloud fiefs. On one side, you have the American fief, built around companies like Google, Meta, and Amazon, and on the other, you have the Chinese fief, with its own giants like Alibaba and Tencent.
But this is not your grandfather's Cold War. Let's be really clear on that. The first Cold War was a battle of big ideas, of ideologies, capitalism versus communism. This new Cold War, it's much more raw. It's a clash of business models. It's basically a fight between American cloudopolists and Chinese cloudopolists over who gets to collect digital rent from the rest of the world.
Yeah, the really crucial point here is that there's not much grand political philosophy behind this new conflict. It's just about raw, naked, techno-feudal class interests. It's a power struggle over which group of billionaires gets to own and operate the fundamental digital infrastructure of our century.
So all of this leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to chew on. According to this theory, if our data is the new oil, the new source of all this immense value, and if we're the ones working all day to produce it for free, then what does that make us? Are we all just cloud serfs now?